done with the early 2010s. I know we don't want to talk about it because it's in the modern era. Okay, even in the context of everything we're talking about right now, everything post 2000s is just good modern basketball, and everything is advanced and everything is good, man. But I'm not gonna lie, we talked about it 2 pods ago, but y'all didn't really want to go for it. Let's go for it right now, man. That era was weak as man.
Oh my God.
Watch your mouth.
We're gonna do this.
Listen. I get it. It's our childhood, bro.
No, bro.
It's our childhood, bro. We were in elementary school. We were in middle school during this time. This is what we grew up on, man. This is my era of basketball. I feel it. But if we really look back, especially at the top end talent of that league, we don't talk about it enough, man. A lot of the elites were either too old. I'm talking about KG, the Dirks, the Kobe's of the world. They were either too young, the Steph Currys, the James Hardens, the Russell Westbrooks, just weren't ready yet. KD was, so I'll give you KD. And then the guys that were supposed to take over that 5-year time span, it was supposed to be Bron, it was supposed to be D-Wade, but he got injured. It was supposed to be Dwight, but he got injured. It was supposed to be Carmelo, but I just don't think he was good enough, especially for this conversation that we're having right now, the scope of this conversation right now. And I feel like Kobe was still supposed to dominate, but if you look at his numbers post 2010, he had some of his most efficient years post 2010, and then again after 2013, his Achilles just ruptured. So can't really do anything there, man. But yeah, man. Early 2010s, we done with it, man. We done with it.
Bezos, do me a big favor. Take both of your eyes, take them out of your face, turn them around, put them on your mouth so you can watch your lips and watch what you're saying. Speaking about good basketball, literally what you just said is the same complaint people have about the NBA now. Ironic, I think not. Man, full circle. The same, the guys that are great at the top end, they're either too old from yesteryear or they're too young to really say or making an imp. That's the same argument, and I would say you're wrong. Yes, it is.
Jokic, Giannis, Luka.
Ain't he the same one talking about, yo, what are the Olympic teams gonna do when Curry and LeBron and KD
are gone?
We're talking about American talent versus the NBA. The NBA is the whole world.
Well,
and I'm also the same one that said, bro, the top 10 now, the gap between 10 and 1, this is the closest it's ever been. So baloney.
But back then, the top three guys that you would name back then are I won't say comparable, but it's still high-end talent like it is now, like you said. Jokic, Giannis, Embiid. Who else? Luka's still one of the younger guys who's ascending. That's the Kevin Durant from back then. But back then, the guys that were supposed to be there was who? LeBron. Wade got hurt. Melo put up good numbers. He just wasn't winning. Last time I checked, that nigga Embiid ain't winning. So what are we talking about? He's just putting up good numbers. Yes, he got MVP. It was a
okay, bro.
Award,
if we're comparing Carmelo Anthony to what Joel Embiid is doing right now,
I'm just saying. Go ahead, Sage. Go ahead.
I'm not even going to necessarily go that route because I think one, he's trying to be slick. Comment section, current chat, Damo, Omar, if you lurking, Bezos. He's being coy. He's being slick. First of all, the idea that you could cut the 2010s in half to get your shit off is crazy. Second of all,
what?
Yes, it's very crazy. Bro,
you're the one that literally celebrated 2K for having a Curry era in 2K25.
Hold on. I'm just talking about in terms of these kind of things. But I'm saying to say, oh yeah, specifically the early 2010s is worse than the entirety of the 2000s. It's almost like you have a greater sample size of ascending talent and declining talent versus specifically a 5-window span where, granted, maybe 1 or 2 more names may rise, but certainly 5 or 6 are going to fall in a 5-year span. That's one. 2, even if we were to expand the things, this is something that you're literally a part of the problem that's going to continue for time and time and time. For example, let's go to the latter half of the 2010s. Someone could argue that's the most Mickey bullshit era of basketball history. And when you really think about it, when you dumb it down to, hey, in 2015, the Cavs were hurt. 2016, the Warriors were hurt and got suspended. 2017 and 18, well, shit me, Kevin Durant is a goddamn Warrior. 2019, oh shit me, the Warriors themselves got hurt. You can make an easy argument that is the most what the fuck are we doing? Ass era basketball possible. So the idea that like we're looking at the early 2010s and we're talking about it from like player 1 to 10, which itself it's a debate, but whether we dive into that is up to you. And the idea that like the quality of basketball is something we should be done with, when in the 2015 into 2019 we were literally talking about as an era where basketball was depressing. Are we forgetting those things? Are we getting nostalgic for that?
Listen, I understand you. First of all, you brought up comparing a whole decade to just a 5-year time span. It's funny you brought that up because I actually wanted to bring up the point that this is still standing with the fact that if we look at the last eras in 5-year increments, I would still believe this. And shout out to Cruz because he actually put together just a rough top 10 list from all of these eras that we're talking about, and we'll examine.
Yeah,
we will look at it together because ultimately my point is not necessarily even saying that this is the weakest ever. It's just one of the weakest, especially relative to era, and that we're ducking it because of the fact that it's just modern basketball. There's a lot of bad basketball being played at that time.
But you've said you're done with every other era ever, so you think only the current iteration of basketball is good?
Listen, it's a hyperbolic statement, but ultimately no. Ultimately what I'm saying is, bro, if we're talking about we're doing all of these we dones because it's old school. What I'm saying is it's kind of a counter to that. Bro, even in modern basketball, there was shitty basketball being played where the talent pool in the league wasn't where it was supposed to be for modern basketball, and we're just ducking it because, it's post-2005, shit was HD, and it was our childhood, bro.
Not true. I disagree. You're wrong.
I definitely think you're wrong, and I definitely think this is a scapegoat argument because at this point, and maybe scapegoat's not the word, so let me take that back, but I think at this point, niggas are literally arguing that only the current era of basketball is good basketball. If you're done with the early 2010s, I don't know how the fuck that you're not done with the latter half of the 2010s, especially given how results were skewed so drastically, and let alone the things that were said about that era of basketball in that era, let alone going further back in NBA history. If the 2010s talent wasn't good for you, what the fuck was the 2000s talent for you? And if the 2000s talent weren't good for you, then by God, what was the 90s talent for you? Hell, we done with the 90s. It's a whole damn thing. So if we're going to keep hating on the prior generations, then at this point, the only generation of good basketball is what we have currently right now, which we've complained about offensive inflation being a crazy thing. But I guess now a character like Donovan Mitchell, if we were to look at the numbers, solos, fuck it, go in the deep end with it. Kobe Bryant and shit. Look, go at the efficiencies, go at the numbers, go at the 3-point percentage, shot selection, whatever case may be. At this fucking point, why do we have players that were from former eras in these top 10s? If we're going to have these takes, let's stand on the business when we have these all-time conversations. I don't want to hear Tim Duncan. I don't want to hear Kobe Bryant. I don't want to hear Magic Johnson. I don't want to hear Michael Jordan. I don't want all of these relative to era shits anymore. If we should be done with this current, all the former eras of basketball, fine. Luka's the GOAT. Jokic is 2. Go ahead and put Giannis up there. Go ahead and put Embiid up there, which, side note, in 2030, they're going to talk about how a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo was able to capture a championship. Mind you, he can't shoot the 3 ball, but we'll wait on that. But go ahead and put fucking Wemby in the 15 at that fucking point. If we're done with all these former eras, stand on business.
All I'm saying is when I just look at that 5-year stretch, bro, compared to like other 5-year stretches, and Cardiac said in chat, the only player peaking in those 5 years, like at the peak of their powers, was LeBron. That's it. KD wasn't at the peak of his powers. Yes, he was in his prime. He's probably to the exception to all of this because he was 30 points out the gate like by year 3. But he wasn't at the peak of his powers. Kobe wasn't at the peak of his powers. Dirk, Tim Duncan, KG, and again, the young dudes, the Currys, the Hardens. Whatchamacallit? I'm missing a bunch of names right now. The Russell Westbrooks, the Kawhi Leonards. They weren't at the peak of their powers.
I was just lying.
They were peaking in the early 2010s?
No. I'm not saying those guys were peaking, but there were other guys who did peak in the early 2010s. They were just ignoring for the sake of saying, well, they're just not these guys. So, I mean,
okay. So again,
Carmelo.
Name the name.
Carmelo.
Okay, keep going.
Carmelo peaked. I was like, Dwight Howard ended up peaking. In the early 2010s, he peaked.
Early 2010s definitely.
Jakim Noah, Derrick Rose. Well, you say because of injury for Derrick Rose. Blake Griffin, I give you 2019. Chris Paul. When did Chris Paul peak?
I definitely.
Chris Paul probably peaked
early 2010s.
I wouldn't argue.
I'd say 2010s.
Yeah, early 2010s. Kevin Love. When did he peak? Early 2010s.
But
Right.
even Dwight, okay, so he had 09, 2010,
Dwight.
2011. All right,
Mhm.
he had 09, which isn't a part of that decade. 2010. Where did we start? 2011? 2011, right?
2010. That's the
2011.
start of the decade.
Yeah, 2010, 11 or 9, 10.
2010, 11.
All right.
I
So
get 10, 11, but
all right. So Dwight was peak Dwight at 10 and 11. Dwight was peak Dwight at 11, 12. The last 3 years of that 5-year time span, he was not the same dude. Same
He
thing with
still
Kobe.
peaked in the early 2010s. So what are we talking? It was still the early 2010s when he peaked.
You still peak for at least 2, if not 3 years.
And we didn't even count an actual year that would have been considered 2010 because the 1920 season is considered the 2020s. That's the 20 season. That's the 20 season. So the 09 2010 season is 2010s. So that's another year of Dwight. That's 3 years of what? 5-year sample size where he was peak. But we just said F it and gave you 10, 11. We didn't really count it, but that would still be 2 out of 2, I would say. Still peaked in the early 2010s.
Let me get this straight. I am not saying there weren't great players that peak at that time, but the conversation is compared to other eras. So I'll just name the top 10 in the late 2010s. All right. So we're looking at LeBron, Russ, Giannis, Steph, KD, Harden, Kawhi, Dame, Jimmy, AD. Would we say that era is more talented than the early 2010s by a considerable margin?
I gotta.
You would
I gotta
have
say
to,
the
even
name.
though.
I'll say the names for the early
early
2010s to set the baseline. So we got LeBron, KD, Dwight. And again, think of what they did in this 5-year time span as a whole. LeBron, KD, Dwight, Chris Paul, Blake, Kobe, D Wade, Russ, Carmelo Anthony, and then like LaMarcus Aldridge.
I'm gonna make sure that's actually my list.
So
But so far, I'm not hearing the drastic drop unless we're gonna have guys like Jimmy Butler.
Why instead of to the late 2000s, that 5-year period of 2000 to 2005 to 2010? What about that
I can't
5-year
hear him
increment?
Dominic, you muted yourself,
Wait,
or
hello?
something happened. All right, go ahead, say that again. Say that again.
Hello, am I here?
Yeah, you back.
Yeah, you back.
Oh, okay, cool. Why wouldn't you compare the early 2010s? So that 5-year increment of 10 to 15. Why wouldn't you compare that to 2005 to 2010? That back half of the 2000s.
I'm about to bring it up. We literally got a list for the last like 5-year increments. So late 2000s, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, LeBron, Dirk, Melo would still be in that conversation. Dwight, Steve Nash, D Wade, Kevin Garnett, Yao Ming. That'd be the late 2000s.
Give me the early 2010s.
I'm definitely taking 2010s. And then when I'm looking at these things right now for the 2010s, hey man, I get it. We're in the current era. We have a younger Chet, all these other things. But when I'm looking at KD in 2010 even was averaging 27. Bron was LeBron James. Don't need to speak on that. Dwayne Wade was Dwayne Wade, especially early 2010s before knee Wade was official. My God. Kobe Bryant, pretty much the same sentiment. Carmelo Anthony, I know he didn't win rings, yada yada yada, but we're talking about players in the 2020s, in the latter half of the 2015s that didn't end up winning championships. So I definitely think Melo's name has merit. Derrick Rose, we want to do the injury thing, fine, sure, whatever. Dirk Nowitzki, Dwight Howard, Russell Westbrook, granted earlier in his career, Chris Paul, Big Doe, never the little one, and what remains of Steve Nash. Fair enough. I definitely
Chris Paul would be in the late 2000s as well. This is a rough list.
Well, you asked me about how Chris Paul was in 2010 to 15.
For the late 2000s, he would be on that list. I forgot to mention him.
I mean, yeah, if I had to say where Chris Paul peaked, it's debatable, but I would lean towards early 2000s, absolutely. But in terms of where how good was 2010's Chris Paul, I wouldn't say that. Put it this way, you could argue his best season ever was in the early 2000s, but I don't think that this is like, yeah, because he fell off in the early 2010s. Like,
no. I'm just saying I forgot to mention him for the late 2000s, like his names of elite players during that time span. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking early 2010s over that. Mind you, I think we're downplaying our own age here. I'm pretty sure we'd be more nostalgic for like NBA Live 07 and shit, unless I'm tripping. And then for things like compared to the 2015s, again, if we want to argue all of the elite stomp, or if we're trying to argue that Jimmy Butler clears fucking Dwight Howard or Dirk or Chris Paul, I guess, but I definitely think those names hold up. Again, I don't see this crazy 10-1 gap that people are trying to push. I get that
as time goes on, sure, the 15th man is better than 15th man, but I think the top 10s for the most part pretty much line up. There's certain specific years that, yeah, it's definitely like, oh, okay, well, down year. It happens. But I definitely don't think that like the gap between who would we say is 10 right now? A character like AD, a player like Book or some shit. I don't think that drop off is anything like a what would be like a 10th guy on 2010, just to put in perspective. I know we keep saying Dwight's name a lot, but like, yeah, I don't think the gap between like Dwight and like KD is as bad as the gap like fucking Giannis and AD right now or some shit like that. Like I don't see that argument either. I think 2K overall has done got people fucked up. And I thought when I seen your tweet, I thought you was gonna go the route of, yo, player fandom has really fucked up 2K ratings. I was about to be all on your side because yeah, they hand out 97s like goddamn crack now. But no, you went the 2010s route.
Do y'all want to hear the other top 10s from the other eras, or nah? They're not gonna really change anything.
I mean, I'm willing to listen to it. I'm say right now, we done with the 90s.
All right. So late 2000s, I already read off. Early 2000s, we're looking at Kobe, Shaq, KG, AI, Tim Duncan, Jason Kidd, Dirk Nowitzki, T-Mac, Steve Nash, Chris Webber, Vince Carter. I definitely think that era clears.
Yeah, I would take early 2000s.
Yeah, let's not misconstruing the numbers. Yeah, there, got it.
Late 90s, we're looking at Karl Malone, MJ, Shaq, John Stockton, Hakeem, Charles Barkley, David Robinson, Allen Iverson, Grant Hill, Gary Payton. Yeah.
Yeah, late 90s
GP.
How good was GP at that point?
Scotty. Was late 90s Scotty. If you want to put Scotty in there, Scotty.
Yes.
I'll just throw out that name.
He was still getting MVP votes, average 21 a night.
Early 90s. Oh, my bad.
Go ahead, keep going. I'm not gonna hold you.
Early 90s, Hakeem, MJ, David Robinson, Shaq, Chuck, Stockton, Malone, Gary Payton, Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller, Scottie Pippen. And then late 80s, Clyde Drexler, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Hakeem again, Michael Jordan again, Charles Barkley, Isaiah Thomas, Patrick Ewing, Dominique Wilkins, and things of that nature.
Things of that nature. No.
Yeah, we're done with the 80s.
Okay.
I think everything that was read off, obviously some higher end names, some 5 to 6s maybe. I think that's a strong argument. Some 5 and 6s are better than other 5 and 6s. But I think at the end of the day, when we're talking about top 10 talents in the league, it's pretty consistent era to era. I think what's not a more rational take, but what's a more objectively consistent take is that 20 to 30s gap, or even that 15 to 20 gap has been shown through history as potentially getting wider depending era to era. But I think when we talk about top 10, especially top 5 players, you can definitely find those in any era that would stand to the test of time.
Man, so stop disrespecting the 2010s, man. The early 2010s. This is crazy levels of hate. He's hating so hard. He got producers and workers building cases for his hate for no reason. If you look at it, I understand. Nowadays, you can say, I mean, the 10th best guy now is better than the 10th best guy 10 years ago. You know what the 10th best guy 10 years ago was? Do you know who that was? I looked at the MVP standings for the 2013 to 2014 MVP race. You know who was 10th? Bezos? LaMarcus Aldridge. Put some respect on the names of the guys back then. Because how much better is Domantas Sabonis than LaMarcus Aldridge?
Pretty significant. I ain't gonna lie.
I don't think it's pretty significant. I mean, he can pass. He can pass. I give you Sabonis. He can pass. Scoring the basketball, LaMarcus Aldridge. Rebounded, LaMarcus Aldridge. I think I might be yapping. I might be yapping. Defense, LaMarcus Aldridge. Stop playing. Sabonis is a cone. Stop.
What do you think LaMarcus Aldridge is? What the fuck?
Better than Sabonis.
Is he? They're about the same. I ain't gonna lie.
Nah, not really. If you want to really look at it, Joakim Noah, Rudy Gobert. I mean, at least Joakim can pass.
He's trolling.
All I'm saying is, man, era where the guys who did peak, we're looking at like fringe top 50 dudes, if not in there at all. Come on, bro. I feel it.
Does Jalen Brunson even cross the threshold of a top 50 player all time? Like, what are we talking about?
Are we just going to boost all the players that are nice right now because we can only wait until time to see?
No. Mind you, I brought up the top 10 because it actually helps that era in this discussion. If we talk about top 20, top 30, this era right now we're in is washing the early 2010s.
But
Washing is crazy.
Washing.
This is
Washing is crazy.
This is my thing because again, at this moment in time, a name like Melo, a name like Darren Williams, a name like Gilbert Arenas or whatever, sure, we'll dunk on them poo-poo because we ended up finding out, oh yeah, they could score a lot of points but not win shit. But if, like, let's say Ant never wins a championship, do you understand how we view Anthony Edwards right now would drastically change? If John Morant never wins a championship, Jalen Brunson never wins a championship, all of these viewpoints for these players that are young, we're going to give them time. They're going to change over time. Right now, everybody's on the SGA wave. But if SGA ends up being a perennial second round exit, we have like it's again mad unfair, and it's a clear like toxic thing that goes on in the community that niggas just bypass just to get their shit off. But reality is, Embiid still ain't fucking won yet, and we're gonna treat Embiid like he clears 90% of the niggas in the 2010s. Why? Because he puts the ball in the basket. The nigga don't even get healthy in the postseason. It's such a like. I don't want to call it corny, but it's definitely dishonest because
it's corny. It's corny. Like, say it. It's corny.
Are we going to sit here and just play smart and just be like, yo, okay, he's better than this guy because look at the numbers. But if he ends up being a fucking loser for the entirety of his career, we're going to view him entirely different than we do right now. It's kind of crazy.
Why? I don't know why you keep on bringing up Joel Embiid because
all right, if Luka,
him winning does not. Nah, he's still clearing Dwight Howard, bro.
That's fine.
I'm gonna call out Luka Doncic. I vividly remember how this podcast specifically 2 years ago, last year, felt about Luka Doncic. After this NBA Finals where he goes out there, how did you feel about Luka specifically? Now, I not only ask you that, I then raise you. If Luka goes out here and never makes the finals again, specifically because of the flaws that you mentioned on how you feel about his game right now, would we view Luka as this world-beating guy that, hey man, Luka or Kobe, or would we be like, actually, Luka's a fucking fraud? That's what I'm saying.
With the finals, I thought he underperformed to his standards, but I would still say right now, with the way Luka has been playing over the last 5 years, Luka is still playing at top 30 all-time standards. Yes.
That's fine. That's fine. But looking at the current NBA right now, there's no way that we're about to sit here and just say Jalen Brunson is just some all-world beater compared to a nigga like Darren Williams. I feel like realistically, if we're looking at right now in the moment, Jalen Brunson like he's on a trajectory to be so much better than Darren Williams. Absolutely. But if the next 3 years the Knicks are unhealthy, these niggas underperform, and this nigga go out there and lays a goose egg in a playoff series or two, we're gonna come back and be like, Darren Williams, Jalen Brunson, and then it's looked at totally different. We're talking about the early 2010s and now. Like, it's nasty. Like, it's nasty to look now and be like, oh, well, you know, LeBron was a 97 overall in 2K11. Dwight was an 88 and he was the 10th player. Bro, discrepancy in the era? No, 2K just sucks at giving out ratings. That's all that is. That's not indicative to what the league was. Because when I talk about Amari Stoudemire in 2011 and 2012, he is just as good as Domantas Sabonis is now. And Domantas Sabonis is a top 7 MVP candidate. And Domantas Sabonis is indicative to what type of players and the quality of players we have in the league today. A guy like Amari Stoudemire is just as good as him. He's early
I ain't gonna lie. I'd literally put my life savings that even if we're talking about the next 5 years, Jalen Brunson is going to have a way better career than what Darren Williams was doing in the early 2010s, if this is really what we're harping on. I
absolutely think Darren Williams wouldn't necessarily be the wrong name, but how about a character like Rajon Rondo? If Rondo, because Rondo would be flirting with around that 9 to even 13 range. Hell, we might be overrating Rajon Rondo. We really could go back and go see who was the best player in like 2010 or something. That's what we need to do. But what I'm saying is like, Rondo right now, Jalen Brunson right now. If we were to have that conversation, most people are going to go Jalen Brunson. Absolutely. However,
they don't care about defense.
Right. But over time,
Rondo is my dude.
No,
my God.
You don't care about defense and leadership, buddy. That's all that is.
What I'm saying.
And we're talking about Jalen Brunson, but I feel it.
Yes. Listen to what I'm saying, because I understand niggas is gonna think this is brain rot or some shit. Maybe it's the wrong messenger, but I swear to God, I am not making up bullshit right now. I'm saying in 10 years, Jalen Brunson goes out there, playoff stinker, loses, playoff stinker, misses the playoffs. At some point, niggas would be like, okay, He had a couple of nice seasons. Hell, he could put the ball in the basket. But if I'm trying to win a championship, I'm taking Rondo, if that's how his career plays out. Now, what's unfair to those eras is when you sit there and say, oh, but I bet my life that doesn't happen. Well, of course, why the fuck would we just make a bet saying Jalen Brunson's going to be a fucking loser right now? That don't even sound like it makes sense. That don't even sound fair. That's what I'm saying. But again, maybe it's the wrong person saying it. Maybe I need to dress like Low tomorrow so niggas will understand what the fuck
my God.
I'm about. But like reality is, bro, I'm telling you.
It's not a winning thing though, Sage. I ain't gonna lie, because I'm looking at what D. Will did in the early 2010s. Jalen Brunson could legitimately be a second round exit for the next 3 years. He can even miss the playoff one of these years. As long as he maintains being a fucking 25 point per game scorer for the next 3 years, yes. He's better than D. Will in the early 2010s.
You would wash him off the same way you wash off Carmelo Anthony in conversations at max. If he did,
you are just glossing over Carmelo like he's nothing.
Did exactly what you just said. You literally described Carmelo Anthony, maybe a bit better, maybe a bit worse, but you're washing him off. At that point, you would literally brush off the idea of Damo religiously bringing up Carmelo in this conversation. The same way you're kind of just like letting it one ear out the other. You would do the same thing to Jalen Brunson in 2030 if that's how his career played out.
In 2030, Jalen Brunson is probably going to be like the 15th, 14th best player in the next 5 years, even if that, while Melo for the early 2010s is a top 5 player you bring up. So I think, yes, that actually does say a lot.
You literally just Tatum.
Okay.
You literally just did not. All right, man, I guess.
Jason Tatum's name was brought up in top 5 conversations. And if you're going
I
to
guess,
early 2010s, Melo don't got nothing for Jason Tatum, I guess.
You don't. All right.
I guess.